G'day you gorgeous people and welcome back to Politics Made OK. Now you hear about Parliament and all those parliamentarians every other day. But do you really know who the people on the Hill are? And what on earth the difference is between all of the political parties? I'm going to tell you who's in them and what they're about ahead of you casting your vote a little later this year. That's right, I'm going to lay out all your options on this week's show with PMO. So like a few political systems around the world, ours has two major parties. In the red corner, coming in a bit on the left of politics, we have Labour. And in the blue corner, leaning to the right, it's the Coalition. Now the first majority federal Labour government was formed in 1910, but at the moment they've been in opposition for about 8 years. Now Labour is the party that is historically aligned with the unions, and we've even got some big names in Labour like Bob Hawke having worked for the unions before they entered Parliament. So along with obviously being a big fan of strong workers' rights, this party is also big on social reform. A lot of what they do is pulling up the little guy who might not be so well off. So it's no surprise that they're responsible for things like Medicare and the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It's often described as the Social Democratic Party, so yeah, if we were in the US, they'd be the Democrats. Right now they've got about 26 of the 76 seats in the Senate and 68 of the 151 in the House of Representatives. Now who do you need to know about in this party? Well, their leader might be a start. And that would be Anthony Albanese. The deputy leader is Richard Marles, the treasurer is Jim Chalmers, and there's some really big heavy hitters in the ministry like Tanya Plibersek, Linda Burney and Penny Wong. And bringing you to the other side of the ring, it's the party currently in government after winning the unwinnable election, the Coalition. Now you probably know, and the name does suggest, the Coalition is made up of two parties. There are the Liberals and the Nationals. Now there are more Liberals, so let's start with them. Now the Liberal Party wasn't formed until 1944. Up until then, there wasn't really one main party in strong opposition to Labour, which was pretty powerful at the time. There are a lot of smaller parties on the right, like the Nationalists and the United Australia Party. So 1944 rolls around, and the leader of the United Australia Party has an idea to bring together all these smaller parties who kind of believe in similar stuff to provide a real counterbalance to Labour. And that man's name, of course, was Robert Menzies. He'd go on to be Australia's longest-serving PM. Now he convened a meeting of 80 people from around 18 different parties who all believed in more personal freedom and kind of having the government less involved in people's lives. That was counter to what was being offered by Labour, which, as I said, was more about social reform. Now while social reform, which is often aimed at bringing about equality and getting everyone on the same page, can be good, it can also verge on being socialist. The hint was in the name. So while Labour is more about reform, some of which might see you taxed more, the Liberals are all about staying the hell out of your life and giving you more personal choice. Of course, not getting involved in people's lives and just kind of letting you all figure it out can also be seen as sort of standing by and watching certain inequalities grow. When you look at Liberal governments, sometimes they look like they do less than Labour governments, but that's kind of the whole point, staying out of it. Now pretty quickly, the Liberals formed a coalition with the Nationals, or the Country Party, as they were then known. So what else do you need to know about the Liberals? Well, their current leader is the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, the Treasurer is Josh Frydenberg, and they've got all kinds of people in the ministry, like Peter Dutton, Michaelia Cash and Karen Andrews. Now the Deputy PM is always the leader of the National Party. That's just how the coalition works. But who are the Nationals? Or the Country Party, as they were once known. Well, they've been around a long time, longer than the Liberals in fact. They were formed in 1920 to represent, you guessed it, the country folk. It's no surprise then that they're a bit more conservative and, like the Libs, are a bit more about keeping out of people's lives. That's right, another party on the right. Is that left though on the screen? I'm worried about pointing left and right. Now they took the National Party as their name in the 80s, and their current leader is, of course, Barnaby Joyce. The deputy leader is David Littleproud, and ministers you should know are Keith Pitt, Andrew Gee and Bridget McKenzie. So there you have it, the two major parties. But they're not the only ones, are they? No, there are 6 minor parties also in federal parliament. The biggest of those, and the most well known, are the Greens. What these guys are all about is pretty clear from the name. That's right, climate is top of the agenda, followed by social justice and non-violence. It wasn't until 1922 that all the state-based Green parties kind of joined together and made up the federal Greens as we know them today. Now you might be asking why, oh why, there isn't a coalition between Labor and the Greens like there is in some countries. I mean, they're both on the left, right? One of the huge things is that Labor has traditionally supported workers and workers' rights. So while they might be about climate, they also have to make sure that they're walking the line of sustaining and creating new jobs. While the Greens kind of want a more radical rethink of the system as it is. That system being the exponential and unstoppable resource extraction of our planet. So yeah, that is a pretty big elephant in the room. The leader of the Greens right now is a guy called Adam Bandt, who sits in the House of Representatives. The 9 other Greens are in the Senate, and they include people like Larissa Waters, Maureen Faruqi, Dorinda Cox, and Jordan Steele-John, who's actually the youngest parliamentarian. Now, the next biggest minor party is One Nation. I hopefully don't have to tell you that its leader is Pauline Hanson, and this party is definitely on the right. I mean, it's a pretty big part of our pop culture.
I don't like it. When you've turned my voice about, I don't like it. When you vote One Nation out.
Yeah, good luck getting that song out of your head. Among other things, Pauline Hanson's One Nation party rails against political correctness, which in some instances can look like this.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
That was her first speech in Parliament. And things haven't changed all that much. Though now her big thing are the vaccine mandates and being dead set against them.
We want our freedom. We want our choice.
Next up, we have Centre Alliance. There are just 2 people who make up this party in federal parliament now, Rebecca Jacqui and Sterling Griff. It used to be known as the Nick Xenophon team. Remember this guy?
A true blue caring party, that's what I say. Let's stop soaring power prices. Kids going interstate. Vote for change with SA Best before it's too damn late.
We're the best, we're SA Best. Come on and put us to the test.
As you can probably tell, the whole thing with the party now known as Centre Alliance is getting stuff done for South Australia. It describes itself as a more centrist party. Its members say that they'll lean to the right on certain issues like those affecting business, but on the left on social issues. After that, there are a few parties with just 1 person in them in federal parliament. They include the Jacqui Lambie Network, the United Australia Party, and the Katters Australian Party. The people representing these parties in Parliament are all really big personalities. Jacqui is known for her outspoken and very yelly speeches in Parliament.
A baby born on that day that the Prime Minister promised us an integrity commission would now be nearly 3 years of age. That baby has gone through 3 Christmases and she's coming up to her 4th. She's learned to crawl, to stand up, to walk. She's pretty much getting ready for preschool now and she's probably learning to count. You know what? That baby's made more progress in 1,000 days than the Liberal Party have on their own bill.
Craig Kelly used to be a Liberal, but then he kind of got shut down for spruiking all these unproven COVID treatments and he stood aside to become an independent.
The evidence, the problem that we have, everyone here in Australia is being directed by this group called the National COVID Evidence Task Force that are meant to look at all the evidence.
Our best immunologists, and you're just confusing the public.
Soon after, Clive Palmer came knocking, and Craig agreed to lead his party. Yay! And finally, there's Bob Katter. He leans to the right on a lot of issues, and I think all you need to know about him is summed up here.
People are entitled to their sexual proclivities, you know. I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned, you know. But I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Finally, you've got your independents, which, as the name suggests, aren't part of a party. Those independents are Zali Steggall, Helen Haynes, Andrew Wilkie, and more recently, Rex Patrick. Rex used to be part of Centre Alliance, but just as Craig Kelly decided to back out of his party, so did he. The difference is that Rex didn't then join Clive Palmer. Oh, Craig. Now, there have been a growing number of independents. They're people who don't have to toe a party line and can be like strong on climate change but lean right on other issues. In fact, the former PM Tony Abbott lost his seat to an independent, Zali Steggall. And that result has really spurred more people on to put their hand up as independents for the next election rather than run with a party. So there you have it, all the political parties in Parliament and a few of the people you should know about who are in them. Now, all these parties represent constituents, which is you, the people who vote for them. Knowing who they are, who's part of them, and what they're about is really important before you cast your vote in the next few months. And I hope this episode has helped a little bit to clarify all the different options you have in front of you. Tell me what you thought of this episode below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on another show of Politics Made OK.